Welcome to the sixth episode of the Middle School AD Podcast. I am your host, Thomas Fredrickson. And today we sit down with Dr. Tyler Amidon, who is the middle school principal at Denver Christian School in Colorado. We talked about pride in playing middle school sports, how to get more kids involved, middle school nights at the high school, and having a vision for your athletic department. I hope you're able to get better today from our discussion. But before we dive in, here's a word from our sponsors.
This episode is sponsored by Gipper, the preferred sports graphics platform for ADs. Start creating professional-looking sports graphics today by starting a free trial. Middle School AD podcast listeners get 10% off any plan when you use code MSAD10 at Gipper.com. As an athletic administrator, you understand better than most how much support matters. Support for your coaches, support for your athletes, and support for your department are crucial to providing the best possible experience for every student. Snap Mobile is now your one-stop for all the tools you need to support your department. With our expanded suite of products, you can now raise money, open team stores, schedule and manage your facilities, and communicate with your athletes, parents, and stakeholders with the same level of care you've come to expect from Snap. Visit snapraise.com today to schedule a demo with your local Snap Mobile representative.
Hometown Ticketing makes it fast and easy to buy tickets on your school's website or in the new Hometown Fan app. It's simple. Just search for your school, buy your tickets, and they'll be right there in your account, ready to be scanned when you get to your event. Download the Hometown Fan app today.
This is Game Time. Neptune Game Time creates a high-energy game day atmosphere that your players and fans will love. Every song in our database is 100% lyric safe, which means you can stop screening music for good. Game Time also provides custom messaging to help you promote your upcoming events, concessions, and event-specific announcements. And it gives you the opportunity to sell sponsorships on your station that will generate revenue for your athletic department. Amp up your game day with Game Time.
Welcome to another episode of the Middle School AD Podcast. Today we are speaking with Dr. Tyler Amidon, who's the middle school principal at Denver Christian School in Colorado. He's also a former AD for 6 years. He's coached college baseball for 6 years, high school baseball for 8 years, and has also been a middle school basketball coach. Dr. Amidon, thanks for coming on. You are our first principal, and like I said, we talked about before, we were blessed to have your AD, Dylan, on the second episode, so this would be nice to kind of get the AD perspective and then the principal perspective. But again, welcome to the podcast and thanks for coming on.
You bet. Thanks. I'm looking forward to it. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, Dylan's a great guy. I'm glad you're able to connect with him.
Good deal. So again, talked a little bit about your background, but tell us a little more about your journey into athletic administration.
Yeah, you bet. Graduated college in the early 90s and immediately became an assistant baseball coach for the college that I attended. And that sort of, I played, obviously I played baseball and then started coaching. And I'm like, I kind of caught the bug there of just the joy of coaching. And so I spent some time, obviously, coaching those college kids, and that's a different experience in and of itself, right? I mean, they're talking about internships and all that good stuff, and some are getting married, and right, so that's an interesting stage of life to kind of explore with them. And then after a few years doing that, I moved out to Colorado and took the middle school PE and baseball coaching position, and then worked my way up to middle school. So I started teaching middle school and was still coaching, and there was just a need. There was a need for a middle school athletic director. We were on a different campus than the high school, and the high school coach had always tried to manage, all the athletics 6th through 12th grade. And I was just realizing, from my position, obviously these are my students. I was just realizing that they needed support, right? They just needed someone with boots on the ground. And just, my love of athletics, my love of middle school students, just sort of, it was a natural fit. And so there I am, kind of taking on the middle school athletics, and really it was baptism by fire. It was I had no idea what I was doing at the time. I knew college athletics, I knew high school athletics, but I didn't know sort of the intricacies and the nuances of middle school athletics. It's different. It's a different deal. And so it took me a little bit to kind of figure that out and learn, the priorities. It's kind of a little bit of a different priority than, say, certainly the varsity teams that I was coaching, or my feeder programs, my freshman team and my JV team. Those were different than middle school. Obviously, college is a totally different animal than middle school athletics. So it took me a little bit of time to figure out kind of what my philosophy was, which was a neat sort of adventure in and of itself. But yeah, so I hung on hung on there for a while, and really, really enjoyed it. And just over time, kind of developed and honed my philosophy. And by then I had my own 2 little tiny children. And so that gave me a different perspective, right, as a dad. So anyway, that's what kind of got me into it.
Good deal. Yeah, I think us people who like the middle school, I mean, everyone says we're a little strange.
Yeah.
Because like I said, it is different. I mean, you've got
a
vast difference between a 6th grader and an 8th grader.
No question.
And so it's fun. I enjoy it. Like I said, I've been at the high school level too, and all that. But coming back to kind of my love at the middle school, it's nice to be there. And again, that's one of the reasons why we started this podcast, is because there are a lot of AD podcasts out there, but they're mainly focused on the high school. And so it's like you said, it's a different beast down here. So that's why we're here talking with you and Dylan and others that we have had on the podcast and lined up ready to go. So kind of along the way, who was your biggest mentor and why?
Yeah. So there's 2 people, one really significant and then one sort of tangentially related. So Barb, she was, so we had 2 K8 campuses, and she started taking over our other K8 campus in the middle school world, but she had been around quite a bit longer than me, had a better sense of middle school athletics than I did. Just a ton of experience. And so even the little things like trying to manage a schedule, right? What does a schedule look like for a middle school versus an everyday and sometimes on the weekend high school program? Well, it looks different. Well, I had no idea what the differences are. I mean, is it 2 days a week? Is it 5 days a week? Is it 4, right? So, and then as I mentioned before, how do I figure out my philosophy towards athletics? I can't take a varsity athletic perspective, I learned, to a 6th grade experience. And so Barb, just a zillion conversations with her when I started going to our league meetings and developing relationships with those athletic directors. And it's just like being a principal. When I get together with a bunch of principals, you kind of try and pull little tidbits of good ideas that I can maybe implement in my world. Well, same thing when I was AD. Barb, of course, she and I talked all the time, so I got a lot from her. But I also got a lot just by being around the other ADs in our scheduling meetings every season, right? We tried to schedule a couple of seasons in advance, but just sitting there all day, you're not making schedules all day. So again, I'm picking brains, and what do you do for 6th grade? And what do you do for boys and the girls team? And So I got a lot of input there, but again, Barb was certainly number one. And then my principal, or in the early 2000s, he he's kind of my second mentor. He coached forever middle school basketball and was successful, and um, he retired a number of years ago. So he was quite a bit older than I was, and he and I would golf together. And so picking his brain on again, as I kind of honed my own philosophy and my own approach to a sixth grade team, to a seventh grade team, to an eighth grade team. He had lived it all for a long, long time, and so he was priceless. And then back to Barb. Barb, she just retired a couple years ago, so she has been an awesome sounding board for years and years for me, um, as I kind of developed and again, like I said, kind of honed my philosophy. She was awesome. Plus, she just turned into a great friend. So I just enjoyed the conversations as much as talking to a friend as I did talking to a mentor in the athletic administration world.
Yeah, it's a good deal. So it's always fun to kind of to hear who led us to where we are. And
Yeah.
and like you said, it's nice to for your mentor to be a friend.
Oh yeah.
And mine's the same way. So it's definitely easy to be able to talk to them that way versus it just being a professional relationship.
Absolutely.
So kind of from when you were at the AD role, and we'll kind of get to the principal side of it later, but
Yeah.
as the AD, what do you think the biggest challenge for middle school sports was?
Yeah. So as I thought about that question, I think it's different now than when I first started in education in the mid 90s. It's a different athletic world outside my school. Inside my school, it's not a huge difference, but the athletic landscape for the middle school age students outside of school has changed so dramatically that has then impacted our school athletics. So we still have a very similar philosophy that we've had for a long, long time. But we have a lot more to navigate. The club sports world, I'm sure this is probably a common answer to that question, but the club sports world is it's a behemoth. It's absolutely massive amounts of dollars. And just let me just pause on that for a sec. So I lived it with my kids. So I have a 20-year-old daughter and a 21-year-old son, both highly competitive. Soccer is their gig. My son's all-state basketball, really, really good. My daughter, three-time all-state soccer player. I mean, she was just an exceptional player. Well, in middle school, she spent a year with the U.S. national team, and I would say that was an okay experience. But the reason, so I'll get back to your question. So the reason we stuck with the club that we went with Kara is because they allowed her the flexibility to play with her school. So she played soccer. Now she had to kind of finagle her schedules a little bit to make it work, but she was able to play middle school soccer and then obviously then high school soccer. And she was able to play middle school basketball, middle school volleyball, right? Her club was flexible. So back to the question. Right now, I've got clubs that dictate whether their students are allowed to play for their school. And that's just a travesty to me. I could go for an hour on just how wrong that is. So I really struggle with that. And so we talk to students in my building and we say, hey, you're going to play. So girls soccer is a spring sport for us. Are you going to play soccer in the spring? And the response is, if my coach will let me. I'm like, wow. So one of the greatest things that I think a student can do is walk up and down the halls on game day when their school has a game. It is so much fun. The anticipation, especially if it's a new experience for them, right? You got some nerves going. And I'm sorry, I live that club world with both my children. You don't have those nerves. You just don't. They have a game that Saturday, and it's a big time game, and it's big time soccer. I mean, my son was on like the second and third tier teams. My daughter was always on the top teams. And so she's playing the top players in the state. And even then, she's like, yeah, I mean, she likes it. It's fun. It's energizing. She plays college soccer now, and it's great. Um, but she will tell you there is nothing like walking up and down the halls on game day in middle school, let alone high school, or the day after a huge win, and your teammates and your classmates are all there and celebrating. And so I just think it's wrong for kids to miss that. And so part of the answer to that question is trying. And I've had this question, I don't know how many times, even this year, trying to convince parents of that, of the miss, of not playing for your team. And it could be like they might swim and not be able to play, say, so volleyball, girls volleyball is in the fall for us, and they can't play girls volleyball. Well, then now they're feeling disconnected with their peers because all their peers are playing. So their peers are wearing their jersey on game day, and they're leaving school early if it's a road trip. And so they get excused, and they're all excited, and they go to the locker room and they change. And then you have these kids that because of some external force are not allowed to play. And I'm telling you, Thomas, that's painful for me. And so going way, way, way back when I first started, that was way less so. Coaches in the club world, if there were club around here back then was more like volleyball. That's what dominated. It wasn't as big of a deal for the other sports, maybe a little bit with basketball, but volleyball was kind of the dominating club, or at least around here. And so it just wasn't as prominent of an issue. And so all the kids played. They played every sport. They played girls played volleyball in the fall, basketball in the winter, soccer, track and field in the spring. And I'm telling you, that is a hurdle. We fight that every day, trying to get these kids connected. And so, yeah, again, sometimes I could go on and on, but that is without a doubt the external forces of clubs. And you know, the families have poured so much money into this, right? So there's a sense like we're committed to this club. Like we've given them, you know, $2,500 a season. I mean, we can't not go. Like we're committed. And so the families are in this pickle. They've been told if they don't play club, then they're not going to get a scholarship. And I'm here to tell you, my daughter quit over and over again, and she got a college soccer scholarship. So I can debunk that in a hurry. But anyway,
I was the same way. I never played one lick of club soccer, but
Yeah.
I played at the college level.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, yeah, I think, I mean, you brought up one fact that I don't think anyone else has brought up. It's just being able to walk through the hall
Nothing like it.
with that jersey on or that warm up on or whatever it is.
Yeah. There's nothing like it.
Yeah, I mean, and it's, you know, it keeps coming back to the experience.
Totally.
And
100%.
you don't get that experience at the club level. Now, I've coached club soccer. I mean, like I said, I've been on it.
I coached my kids when they were little. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've coached it. Now, we've got a mecca here in South Carolina. I won't say the name, but if people were listening from South Carolina, they know who it is. That will tell kids don't play.
Oh yeah.
Unless you are playing for a school who also has one of our coaches coaching there.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if we don't approve that coach is not good enough. And it's like you said, it's sad
Yep.
to see that because, you know, club where, you know, it's got some benefits. I'm not saying it's totally negative.
No. My kids had a great club experience.
Yeah. But it's more about the individual. Where I think the school was more about, like you said, the team, the school, the community, the pride.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And I mean, I just put out today For those listening, today is November 13th, and this is probably going to go out in December. But we just did player introductions on our social media for our basketball teams, and we asked all our players, what are they most excited for the season? And I will tell you, out of the 14 girls that's on the girls team, 12 of them didn't mention anything about winning or anything. It was all about playing with friends, getting to know new friends. Some of them was, they were excited about all the gear they get with fundraising, and it was the experience. It was experience answers, not I want to win. I want to get better. I want to try to get a college scholarship.
Yeah,
it's I want to be able to play with this group of girls, make new friends, have a good time.
Yeah.
Yes, learn some skills. Yes, win, but I want to have a good time.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of people miss that, because you do see the elite athletes that are starting to get recruited at 7th and 8th grade.
Oh yeah.
But we all know a college athlete is a very small percentage, and that elite middle schooler is even a fraction of a percentage.
Oh yeah.
But a lot of these clubs are pumping in. Well, if your 7th and 8th grader don't play with us, then they're not playing at they're not playing at the college level.
Yep.
So yeah, like I said, we can go on for days about it. Because like I said, I think every time I ask that question for every episode, it always comes up, but it's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
I like what you said about just the pride of being able to walk through the halls and have that support. Because you don't have that. Your friends don't come to a club soccer game.
They do not. You're absolutely right.
You may get one or two of your close friends come, but
That's
you're not
right.
going to have a student section.
Totally true.
And
to that point, we do big, like a tailgate. We did a tailgate at one of the varsity volleyball games for the girls, and it was a middle school tailgate. So we had food and all this fun stuff, and then brought the middle school volleyball teams, and there's a lot of kids on our volleyball teams, and brought them out right before the varsity match and introduced them to this packed house. There's probably 500-600 people there, and so we put all the middle school girl teams out on the floor, and they got a round of applause. And I'm telling you, I live the club life with my kids. That does not happen.
Oh no! Like, so my first stint at the middle school, the middle school I was at had a very good step team. So when I went to a high school, it wasn't the high school that middle school fed into, but it was a local high school.
Yeah.
So my first year at the high school, being the AD there, I called their step team coach. I said, "Hey, y'all want to come perform at the halftime show? I know you don't feed into us, but I think it'd be great. It'd be fun."
Oh yeah.
And the school I was at was a big time basketball school, so there was a ton of people there.
Yeah.
And just when those girls walked in, again, some of them, 6th, 7th, and 8th, when they walked in and started performing, just the uproar that they heard, and and they were pumped. I mean, afterwards they were out in the cafeteria, and they're like, "This is the best thing ever."
Oh, it's awesome.
Like I said,
Good
but
for you.
You don't get that stuff at the club, and
right.
I like the answer about the school pride. So you kind of mentioned in our pre-questionnaire the opinion of cutting versus not cutting.
Yeah.
I know in middle school, that could go either way. Some middle schools say, no, everyone's got to play, figure it out. Or some say, well, no, it's a basketball team. Why are you keeping 20 people?
Yeah.
So kind of what is maybe y'all's philosophy, and maybe just kind of a personal philosophy on, and kind of where you see that, one way or the other.
Sure. Yeah, I to be honest, I could argue both, but I pretty strongly believe at the middle school level, I don't know what a 10-year-old's going to look like when they're 17, right? So for me to crush their spirits and end their career at 10, 11, 12 years old, 8th grade, 13, 14, that would be a hard sell for me. So then the question is, if I'm not going to do that, so then what? So So basically, let's say everybody wants to come play. Well, you got to make it back to our experience. You got to make it a great experience. So you got to have small enough teams so that they get that individual attention. So what's coming up for us in basketball, we'll have basically 3 teams of boys, 3 teams of girls at all 3 levels, because we want 10 or fewer on each roster. Now, for the most part, all the girls in 6th grade, say 20 some 30 of them, they'll practice together, and all the coaches will be there and practicing together and all that. But the numbers will be small in their game time so that there's some playing time, right? So you need to get some playing time, because the only way to get better is by touching the ball. I mean, that's pretty obvious. So you got to get touches on the ball, whether it's soccer, whether it's basketball, volleyball, whatever it happens to be. So what we've kind of worked through is, okay, we have a lot of kids coming out. Let's just say 8th grade. We have a ton of kids coming out. We want to keep 10 or fewer on a roster. But 8th grade, by the time basketball season rolls around, they're essentially 8 months or fewer from high school. So part of our responsibility is, yes, to give them experience, but it's also to make sure that they're ready for high school basketball. Freshmen, that rare kiddo that can play JV as a freshman, very rare, usually C-team kid. But nonetheless, that's part of our job. Yes, give them an experience, but it's skill development so they're ready to take on these high school kids. So what we've sort of done is sort of a hybrid. Is we've said, okay, we've got, let's just call it the number 30, just for an easy number. We're going to take 20 and put them on basically evenly divided teams, basically. And then we're going to take our quote unquote top 10 kids, and we're going to give them a little bit of a different experience. So we're in a league. Our middle school is in a league with another dozen schools, or whatever the number is. Our 2 groups of 10 that are kind of that evenly divided, they're going to play in the league. But we're going to take our top 10 kids, make a different team, and put them in a league that's outside of our school. So sort of a club experience, but not fully club experience for that. We're not going to spend $1,500 a kid for basketball, but we're going to try and give them a little bit more of a robust experience, because as it sits now, these are our top 10 kids. Now, 1, 2, 10 of these other kids, who knows, they're going to develop, but they're going to develop because they're getting touches on the ball. Because often in middle school, as you know, sometimes, especially in basketball, with only 5 kids on the floor, those 1 or 2 stars, they just dominate the ball, right? And it's hard not to. And it's more of a your kids that are maybe your average or below average kids, they more defer. It's just natural. It's a natural tendency for a middle school kiddo to do that on the floor. They defer. They don't want to be the reason the team loses, right? There's all kinds of reasons why your kid that's maybe not your best player defers a lot to your studs. Well, that's not that kid that's doing that deferring, that's not developing their skills. They need to touch the ball. They need to shoot. They need to take some key free throws. So that's kind of how we're doing it. So we're not cutting, but we want to, and this is new for us this year, by the way. So we want to give these quote unquote top 10 kids kind of a different experience and see how that goes. So again, that's going to be new for us. We're excited about it. Now, here's another reason why in the past, we have said we're going to evenly divide teams no matter what. So one of the skills that your top players do, your stars, call them stars, whatever you want to call them, your higher capacity players, one of the things that they learn is how to get others involved. So it's an amazing opportunity to learn how to pass the ball. And how do I pass the ball to this kiddo who is just learning the game? He's not played before middle school. You've played club since you were in 3rd grade. So you're a high achieving kid, but your good buddy wants to play with you. He wants to be on your team in 6th grade. So now what are your responsibilities as a star, right? As the stud, as the go-to kid? Your responsibility is to set your friend up for success, right? So that's an awesome learning opportunity for that. So and so that's something that I think is missed at times. There's just a lot of deferring, and that kid who needs the touches the ball like 8 times in a game, and it only touches his hands because it's on his way over to the star on the swing play. It's not because they have any interest in shooting or going to the hoop or anything like that. So anyway, I think keeping all the students in the program in some way, shape, or form is really, really important. And again, what will they remember? They are not going to remember the wins and losses. They'll remember that they got to sit on a bus on a road trip, wear their uniform after and before a game, develop their skills, learn to kind of face adversity, right? All those sort of sports type, basically lessons that kind of only sports can teach you is facing that adversity. And it's hard to replicate you're down by 1 or game's tied and there's 10 seconds left and Johnny's on the line. This is the last place in the world Johnny wants to be. Johnny didn't sign up for this. This is not his thing, but you know what? What an awesome lesson for Johnny to learn. And so if I cut Johnny because I say, quote unquote, Johnny, you're not good enough, then I don't give Johnny an opportunity to have that experience. I mean, what if he does sink it? Are you kidding me? What are the kids going to do after the game when they high five Johnny? And he's never had this experience before in his life. And who knows, maybe it's against your rival. And the next day, up and down the halls in the middle school, everybody's talking about it and the teachers are talking about it. I mean, I would hate to rob a kid of the opportunity to have that experience. So we try and keep everybody and we try and challenge everybody as best we can.
So just real quick. So how, like I said, I know, like we're in a league,
Mm-hmm.
and then obviously there's other leagues all around us. How do
Yep.
you get that elite team, if you want to call it?
Sure.
How do you get them to have games when all the other schools around you have their games that are in their league? I mean, are y'all?
Yeah. So these, again, this is new for us. So the idea is that they're going to play teams that are not in our league. So they're not going to play schools. They're going to play other, I guess maybe the word is club, but it's not quite that full elite gold crown is what's around here. It's not that full elite club, but it's a step up from our league.
Okay,
It's
yeah,
not a 50 game season, travel all over creation. It's not that. It's kind of a moderate step towards that. That's a step above our league. So our league, which is one of the great things about our league has a very similar philosophy to us. And so that's kind of how our league formed over the years is these schools have a similar philosophy. They don't cut. They want kids to have experiences. And so that's why it's been such a good fit for so long.
Good deal. I know, for maybe those schools, sort of like us that just, maybe don't have that opportunity to have multiple teams.
Sure.
I know at the middle school level, you could possibly, implement some type of intramurals.
Oh yeah.
It might be more in-house, and that's
Yep.
kind of what we're doing is we have an intramural season, if you want to call it, and
Sure.
And so that's how we kind of get the ones that maybe didn't make the team and all that, still involved, still having a good
that's
time.
Cool. Really cool.
They don't get to wear the jersey and all that, but they're still playing.
Yeah.
And
Developing their skills.
Yeah, and so and so that kind of works for us because we're one of the schools. You have 50 guys show up for a 15-man roster.
Yeah.
For 7th and 8th grade basketball, and
Yeah.
and that's all, and it's combined. We don't, and I know some states have 7th grade basketball, 8th grade basketball.
Yeah.
And we have 7th and 8th. It is the middle school team.
Yeah.
And it is rough. Now I know my boys coach did a great job this year when he did his cuts. he sat, instead of sending out an email or a letter or a phone call or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
he put all the boys into one room and he pulled each boy aside.
It's great.
Now it took forever, but
Oh,
he
yeah.
was able to sit each young man in front of him and explain, look, this is why you didn't make the top 15.
Yeah.
Not because you're a bad person, not because of all that, but maybe you need to develop your dribbling a little better or your defense a little better or whatever the situation was.
Sure.
And I know that went a long way with some of those kids, because now they can maybe go play church ball, or they can go play club, or they can go play rec or whatever. And they know, okay, this is what I need to work on to get maybe on the team next year if I'm a 7th grader, or when I get to the high school and there is more options. There is a C team, there's a JV, whatever. Then I may have that opportunity. But yeah, I mean, it hadn't been brought up yet, so I'm glad you kind of put that in there, because that is a big deal. And and even in some of the schools, like we're in Greenville County, which is we've got 20 middle schools. And,
oh wow!
And it's pretty much, and that is our league. We divide it right in half, and we have 2 different regions, and it's up to the middle school. So in the past, there's been some middle schools that show up with 20, 25 guys on a basketball team.
Whoa.
Because they don't cut. And so, they got that same philosophy about, we're not going to cut. We want everybody to have experience, and so on and so on. And then you've got the ones that do cut, and they show up with 10 to 15. But it's also like,
so is it a route? I mean, is that game just become a route? I mean, a 40-point game then?
Well, the problem it is that team that has 20 to 25 has 6, 7, 8 that can play.
Okay.
And those are the ones who are playing, and 12 through 25 never touch the floor.
Oh boy.
And so, again, that's like you said, if you're not going to cut, how can we make the team smaller to get these boys and girls on the court or on the field or whatever, because you learn the most in the game.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we struggled because we've had that in the past where you schedule, because again, you're scheduling a season or 2 ahead, so you schedule anticipating these numbers, and all of a sudden way more kids show up. So we've had times when there's been more than 10, like too many on a team, and the families are like, I'm driving 30 minutes across town and my kid plays 1 quarter. Like, that just doesn't, that
or
just
don't play at all.
Or they don't play at all. I mean, that just doesn't fly. Like, we just, and I can't tolerate that too as their principal. So I'm like, yeah, fix that. Fix that somehow, make a change. And so that's what kind of brought us to this point, is trying to just think differently a little bit. So
yeah, I think that's great. I mean, like I said, I know there's some other counties around us that have a 7th grade team and an 8th grade team, and that may be one of those things that we get to eventually.
Mm-hmm.
But we're a middle school team, and that's what you play. And
sure.
But like I said, but most of the schools try to figure out a way to get them involved, whether it's through intramurals and things.
That's
like
great.
That. So
that's great. That's great.
Like I said, I'm all about the experience, and every time I've had to cut, I mean, even at the varsity level when I've had to cut, it's I hate cutting.
Oh, I'm with you.
Because I always use the Michael Jordan.
Yeah, totally.
Symbolism. I was like, I'm gonna cut the next Michael Jordan. Or I'm gonna coach, when I was coaching girls soccer, I'm gonna cut the next Mia Hamm. Or I said, and then they're gonna come back and say, that middle school coach, But it's a good thing, and like I said, it's obviously a lot of times we have to cut, but if we do, because there is only one team, how can we figure out another way to get those kids involved?
Yeah.
And still loving the game and not hate
it.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you can, to your point, when I coached varsity and then of course college, I had to make cuts all the time, and I would sit down with them individually, and I kind of go over how we got to this point, and would love to see you try out again next year. Here's some things I want you to work on in the next year. Let's stay in touch. You're right. So there are good ways. I mean, it's still painful, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's ways that you can honor the kid and the family, even when making a cut, right?
Yeah. Well,
So
when I address it, it's it if you were one of the ones that get cut, maybe talk to your parents about a time that they didn't get something that they wanted.
sure, yeah,
And it is teaching some life lessons, but these are 12 and 13-year-olds,
yeah,
but it's, sometimes she's like, okay, I understand you're upset, but I mean, there's times, I got cut,
yeah,
I mean, I've been on teams too that didn't cut. And like you said, you show up and maybe you never get any playing time. And then, on 1 year, and the next year you come back and you're one of the starters. A
yep,
lot of it just has to do with, personnel and what's there and what's not there.
yeah. That's me, 7th grade basketball. Sat the bench all year, started as an 8th grader, but man, that was a long 7th grade year.
Oh yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
not
and
sure
it
I
makes
got
you,
any better.
yeah, yeah. When you're sitting there, it makes you ponder. Do I want to do this, or do I want to go
Yes.
somewhere else?
Yeah,
Um, and
absolutely.
so, well, maybe not somewhere else, but pick another sport.
Pick another
And
sport. Yeah,
but I wasn't very big. Well, I'm still not very big. I'm 5'7", so I knew, okay, I'm a one. I'm a point guard,
right.
and if I can't make it as a point guard, I just might as well not even try. So. Yeah,
Absolutely.
so mine was kind of narrowed down to you got one job,
Yeah.
and but that's good stuff. Kind of in the same role, now sitting in the principal chair.
Yep.
If there's one thing, maybe not one, but if there's a couple things that maybe that you can say from the principal side, being an AD, going to the principal side, kind of maybe what that relationship between the two needs to look like, or kind of what the principal is looking for out of
Mhm.
a middle school AD. Just
Yeah.
kind of now that you're looking at it from a different perspective,
Yeah.
Kind of enlighten us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, one of the key things for a principal, so this is my 11th year. One of the key things for a principal is to have a kind of that 50,000-foot view, right? So athletics is really, really important, but so is performing arts. So is our fine arts program. So is our STEM program. So are our electives. Um, right. So I want each kind of pillar in my world. I want them to feel valued and really, really important, but I also have to have them, part of my role is to say, that's a great idea, but let's see how it fits in the big scheme of Denver Christian, right? So that's part of it. So sometimes, my AD, they'll get really big eyes and want to do all this, and it's like, yes, let's figure out how to do that, but I got to figure out how does that impact performing arts. So for example, we recently put our booster club supports both athletics and performing arts and our fine arts program. So I can't have the athletic program drain the funds from the booster club, or vice versa. I can't have the performing arts and fine arts program drain when I need whatever I need for my athletic program. So keeping the big picture in mind and challenging them. And the other thing is I bring the perspective of our families to the table, right? So I know the families better than they know the families. So one of the things that I bring to our conversations is a perspective from the families. Like, yes, I know this family well. I've known them for a long time. Let's figure out how we can help this family be a part of this program. So I just bring a bigger sort of that 50,000-foot view. And the ADs have a bigger view than, say, the coaches, right? Because they see all the sports. And so they have sort of a similar perspective to me. Mine's just a little bit more elevated in terms of all that I see. So that's really important, that when I bring that to the table. And then, sometimes now we have an assistant AD also. His name is Mike. He's amazing. He and I probably talk more than Dylan and I talk. I mean, Dylan and I talk all the time. He's great, but his assistant Mike has sort of helped take on the middle school world a little bit more. They both do both, but Mike is sort of my go-to. So the other thing that I have is constant communication. Like, what's the plan here? Like when I started seeing the numbers for our teams this winter, I'm like, okay, what's the plan? I don't want 17 kids on a bench at a basketball game. We're not doing that. So how are we going to manage that? And then the other thing that I pushed pretty hard for was this: how do we take these top 10 kids and get them pushed and get them in kind of something that's developmentally appropriate for them? I don't need those 10 showing up to a game and winning by 32 every game. That's a waste of everybody's time. So kind of push that a little bit. Although Mike and Dylan had very similar perspectives, we latched onto that idea together rather quickly. So anyway, I bring kind of that big 50,000 foot view. Their role is to advocate for their programs and push hard for dollars and push hard for programming. And mine is to support that, push back, ask difficult questions, right? So we have kind of that push and pull. They know that I love athletics, and that's kind of my jam. Although, to be totally honest with you, Thomas, there's nothing I like more than hearing my middle school choir sing. Not gonna lie. But anyway, that's a different story. So they know my role is to push back and ask questions, and their role is to fight hard for their program. And so we try and find a middle ground.
Yeah, good deal. Yes, I mean, I've always said that, the principal and the AD have to be side by side.
Oh yeah.
Because that if that's not the case, and if they don't see the same vision, then it's going to be a struggle.
Yep.
And so
absolutely.
I think and I think it helps too with you being in that former AD seat and then moving over to the principal. It kind of helps that situation. But sometimes you'll get a principal that's not an athletic guy,
right?
And so trying to build that relationship with them and justify, like you said, when I come to the principal with a request, justifying why the basketball program or the baseball program or whatever needs this, but then also listening to, like you said, them saying, well, the choirs also ask for that same amount of money,
right?
So it's balancing out, and sometimes it's a yearly rotation type deal.
Sure.
Especially if they're combined. I said, luckily, our athletics and our fine arts budgets are totally separate.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of places, activities is the umbrella, and then athletics and fine arts and everything follows underneath it.
Yeah, and we're trying right now to make athletics its own cost center, right? So it funds itself. So we have huge sponsors and different things like that get a lot of airtime through our athletic program. And so we're pushing hard for that. And honestly, we're trying to do the same thing for our fine arts program as well. But yeah, they're kind of their own budgetary pillars. It's just this booster club, that's made up of the volunteers and stuff that kind of have that even more separate bucket of money that they can support all the kids with. So,
well, I get it. I mean, because like I said, I was obviously heavily involved in sports and athletics, but I was also in the band as well. So,
oh yeah,
and my dad was a former band director, so
you get it.
I see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was at the high school and the band director came up and asked something about football or basketball, I'm like, all right, let's figure out how we're gonna make this work. And, because I've seen it from both sides. So
yeah,
it's and I've always loved trying to get the band into a basketball game. I mean, like it's a small little pep band or whatever.
Oh yeah, we do that.
Or even it's the drum line.
Drum line, absolutely, we do that. Yes, you're right.
Just set them up over in a corner somewhere, and every time a timeout happens, just let them go to town.
Totally.
And because then that shows the merger and the marriage of the two, because
Yep.
the two get a lot of slack sometimes by not getting along.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Well said.
I think if we can show how we can make both of them work. I mean, there was even one year at halftime we had the ROTC. They would come out and do their little rifle presentation, or
Oh, wow.
whatever their competition things are called. They would come out at halftime and do their things. So again, it's just trying to figure out how to get everybody involved, because fine arts, yes, but athletics is really the window to the school.
Yeah.
Most of the people that are going to come onto your campus, especially public schools, most people that come on to your campus are coming for an athletic event.
Sure.
And so they may never see the choir or the band or the ROTC or the art or whatever, unless the choir sings the national anthem.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, so now, those parents are going to come to the basketball game because they want to hear their daughter or son sing or play or whatever. And hopefully you get it hooked. And, we hadn't really pushed it, but this year, because being new at this school, but we're probably going to definitely push it next year. We did it at a former school that I was at, but we're the Panthers, so we just call it like the Panthers supporting the Panthers.
Yeah. That's cool.
Maybe take the basketball team or all the sports teams to the band concert or the choir.
Yeah, that's
concert.
a great idea.
And then, hopefully in return, they're like, hey, the athletic teams came to support us. Let's go support them.
Yeah.
Like I said, because we're all, and that goes back to what we said at the very beginning. That goes back to that school pride.
Yep.
Now you've got a band or a choir person, high-fiving or dabbing, an athlete up in the hall that may never have talked to each other before that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I like that. And our school is small enough where a ton of the kids in my choir or band are also playing sports, right? So they feel the support from both sides. The folks show up for the band concert, but they also show up for the basketball game, because it's a lot of the same kids, which is really fun too.
Yeah, good deal. So I know you've kind of talked about a little bit of the things, but is there something that y'all have done athletic wise there at your school and with your community that you're most proud of, that maybe you can share, and maybe somebody listening could pick up and it help them with something they're doing, or just kind of being a good idea?
Yeah, really. When we do, I kind of mentioned it earlier, when we do the middle school nights at each of the sporting events, the high school varsity sporting events, that is awesome. The kids, the middle school kids they get to stand in the high school student section during the game that night. We do a tailgate, so we have food and all that fun stuff outside. And then they and their coaches get introduced. If it depends on the sporting event. If it's volleyball, it happens before. If it's football, it happens at halftime and different things like that. Those are huge nights. The other thing it does is some of our middle school families don't necessarily attend our varsity events. So because their kid is there getting announced at halftime, now they're there, right? So they're like, oh, I didn't know, or it's just it's more exposure for the kids, and then it fills the gym, right? So there's hundreds and hundreds of people in the gym, but that is a fun night. The middle school kids love it, and then I've been here long enough where the varsity kids used to be the ones in middle school being introduced, and now they're the varsity, right? So they remember that. Then the other thing that so like in volleyball, we introduce them before the match, and then all the middle school teams go over to one side of the gym, and the varsity volleyball team runs out under this tunnel of middle school kids, and then they're high-fiving, and then the other thing is kind of in the same vein is we have huge pep rallies for the high school, And we now invite the middle school students to those pep rallies. And so we do these fun games. And so you've got these juniors and seniors doing these silly games, bucket toss, like just goofy games. And then their teammates are middle school kids. And so there's just a lot of community building there. So bottom line is we try and connect our middle school students, athletes, with our high school students, athletes. So we do as many things as we can to make that happen. It's really fun.
Yeah, that's a good. I like that. I think we definitely see, maybe some middle school nights, per sport, around, but also, I know this past season, our volleyball season's in the fall,
Yep.
and our varsity volleyball team came down to watch one of the middle school games.
Yep.
And that was fun just to show the support for the
Yeah.
high school. But to say, okay, we're going, they you could tell they came from practice and everything like that.
Yep.
But we're going to come and support y'all for this game, and cheer you on. And of course, they've got their own cheer, so they start getting loud, and
Yep.
it gets the parents involved. And one girl, high school girl, jumped down on the floor and started a wave, and I mean, so it was very fun to watch.
That's fun.
And it hyped up the middle school girls as well. And so
Yeah.
it's anytime, like you said, we've talked about it before on the podcast, is how can we get the two working together?
Yeah,
Um,
totally. Right.
especially at a a lot of places, again, especially public schools, where the middle school and high school are not in the same building. I mean, they may
Right.
be 15, 20 minutes away from each other.
Yep.
But how can we get involved? And even if you're not in the same building, you like you say, you still can do a tailgate for a game. You still can do a middle school night. And sometimes that might not be started by the high school. It may just be the middle school reaching out saying, "Hey, can we come watch a game? If we come tonight, can we get in for free or whatever?"
Yeah.
And and then after, like I said, after doing that a couple of times, it sparks into something.
Yep.
Some type of partnership, because those middle school athletes are the high school's future. I mean,
Oh
so
yeah. Absolutely.
if there's no relationship there, then I think it hurts. It hurts everybody, and not
Yeah,
not
it hurts
just
the program.
not just the middle school side of it. So
Yep.
yeah, I like
Absolutely
that.
agree with you.
That's good stuff. So, kind of in closing, a couple of guests have kind of taken this and spun it into 3 or 4 different words. But kind of as we close, what do you think, if there was one major personality trait or strength in a middle school AD to be successful, kind of what do you think that would be?
Yeah, vision. That's, to me, it's vision. I can help you with the details. My administrative assistant can help you with details and things like that. But I want someone who's constantly thinking, how can this be better? Like, what's a vision? And I'm not saying we have to turn middle school sports into Division I athletics, but how can we make this a better experience for these kids? That they've got 3. So for us, middle school is 6th, 7th, and 8th. So they've got 3 years to be a part of the middle school program. What's your deep hope, right? What do you want? If they're sitting down, having coffee with a bunch of friends in 25 years, and you start, for some unknown reason, you start talking about middle school athletics, what are they talking about? What's your deep hope for that? So ultimately, it's a vision for the experience for these kids. If you can have a vision of what this can be and how do we maximize this experience for these kids, it'll drive you to question everything. Can we do that better? What's the practice schedule? How can we tweak that? What's the game schedule? How do we get these kids more competition? How do we get these kids less competition? They're showing up and getting blown out by 50. What's the point of that, right? So if there's a vision for the program, a vision for it being better, a vision for the experience of these kids, if you've got that always sort of as your kind of your North Star of what it can be like. And I'm not saying never be content, because there's time to be content. But always be asking, like, okay, so I've got this vision. What's happening in my middle school athletic program that's not pointing to this North Star, that's not pointing to this vision? So now let's address that. Let's talk about that. And I'm not saying you pull the ripcord on a program, but you should at least have a conversation about it. And if it has to be tweaked slowly over a year or two, that's okay. That's okay. But at least be asking the questions. So there's my vision, right? There's my North Star. What systems, what programs are not pointing to that North Star, not pointing to my ultimate vision? And what am I going to do about it? So an example of that is Dylan and Mike brought their 5-year strategic plan for our athletic program to my leadership team, and we poked holes in it and we asked questions, but overall it was really, really good. I mean, he was asking all the right questions, and you could tell he had a vision. You could tell he had analyzed every piece of the program, from scheduling to coaches training to whatever. And so if someone has that vision and that North Star that's driving every decision that they make, and it might be the world's greatest idea, like that sounds like the greatest thing in the world, but you know what? It doesn't point towards your North Star. It doesn't point towards your ultimate vision for the program. Then we're not doing it. So if they've got a vision and a North Star that's clear, that's driving them, then I think the sky's the limit.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. And I've done the leadership training kind of with Jeremy Boone. I don't know if you've ever heard him, but 80 by Design, and his is the promised land. He calls it the promised land.
Sure.
What is your promised land, and how are we going to get there?
Yeah.
And like I said, I think that this episode's going out on December 9th, and he, which is the first day of the NADC, and he's actually the closing speaker. So if you're listening, make sure you go to that closing, the closing general session on Tuesday. But,
you bet.
But yeah, you got to have a vision to get for. Like our hashtag here at the school I'm at is just be the standard.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to be the standard. We want people to look up to us and say they've got it right. Whatever they think right is they're doing it right.
Yeah.
And then hopefully, they raise their standard. Well, if they raise their standard, now we've got to raise ours again.
Totally.
Like you said, just kind of always looking forward and how to get better and not being, just sitting back and saying, okay, we've made it, or everything's going good. Because if
we've arrived,
if you've arrived, something's going wrong on the other side. So,
absolutely.
Always looking forward. I like that, because I'm one of the personality traits. My number one is futuristic. So I'm right.
Oh, perfect.
Right along with vision. So I can. That's a whole nother podcast. We may have to get you back on for it and just talk.
That'd be awesome.
How to put a vision together in a program. So
I'd love it.
But that's good stuff. Well, before we close, if you want to kind of tell people how they can get in touch with you, if they want to reach out, maybe pick your brain a little bit about some of the stuff we've discussed today, and I'll just give you that time here before we close.
Yeah, you bet. Probably the easiest way is on Twitter. It's at Tyler Amidon. It's just at, all one word, all lowercase, at Tyler Amidon. Then my email is tamidon@denverchristian.org. Those are probably your two best places to start. So at Tyler Amidon on Twitter, and then tamidon@denverchristian.org. And I would love to have any conversation with someone about this. That'd be great.
Sounds good. Well, we appreciate you again. And
yes, sir. Thank you.
And spending time with us. And again, being our first principal on the podcast, and
you bet,
giving us a little different side of things. Is that definitely from that chair.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it. It was great chatting with you.
All right. Well, again, thanks again. And I hope everyone enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Middle School Athletic Director Podcast. If you like what you heard and want to hear more, please subscribe on the platform that you are listening or viewing from, and give us a rating and a review to help us know.
This episode was sponsored by Gipper.
Again, thank you,
Use the
and
code
see you next time.
MSAD10 for 10% off any Gipper plan at Gipper.com.